The name of this story is Good Times, Bad Times, but mostly good times. I was 16 years old. Can I get a let the good times roll? I was an all-American boy during the bicentennial year. Let the good times roll. It was summertime, and the living was easy. I had a bag of weed and a hit of acid, and I was driving my Ford Econoline to my first ever Grateful Dead show. You might say, laissez le bon temps rouler. You may say it better than I do. But I say, let the ever-living, never-ceasing, mother-loving, father-mucking good times roll. Yeah! So my high school years were pretty much a non-stop pageant of good times. Like if Mardi Gras occurred in Connecticut and lasted 4 years. Somehow I avoided all the bullshit young people experience. When trouble came my way, I just stepped aside and let that horseman pass. My days were carefree, and I blissfully bounced from one revel to the next. And the next frolic on my calendar was an outdoors dead show set for Monday evening, August 2nd, 1976, at Colt Park in Hartford, Connecticut. The day this doodah man first set foot on the Golden Road. This is a story about letting the good times roll. But this particular show is legendary in Grateful Dead lore for having a dark side. It was a true mix of chaos and karma, disorder and wonder. Here's how it went down. My crew of 6 loaded into my van the aging white warhorse named Shadowfax. And I drove 20 minutes to Hartford. We parked on the grass lot and pre-partied in the van because, well, that's what vans are for. Dead songs blared on the speakers scattered on the shag-carpeted road. Being ravenous potheads, we inhaled a succession of doobs. Around 5:30, we dropped some window pane and ambled through the gates. Security was provided by Hell's Angels. I'm not lying. We thought I don't know how they forgot about Altamont, but this was about 7 years later, maybe they forgot. And security corralled us into this narrow chute, frisking and probing us in unpleasant ways. Despite their heavy manners, we successfully smuggled in copious quantities of weed, losing nary a seed or stem. These big, hairy dudes with attitude treated their security detail as an opportunity to steal shit from hippie kids. Eventually, everyone in line figured out what was going on, and we all started passing contraband backwards. So whoever was at the end of that line surely ended up with a shit ton of goodies. I peeked inside the security tent where some angels were greedily salivating over their plunder. Later, people said that the excesses of security set the tone for the events that followed. I didn't know what happened until later, when it hit the TV news and newspapers the next day, when my parents started asking questions, to which I customarily replied, I don't know. But this time it was true. More on that later. Fortunately, the good times rolled before the shit hit the fan. So Colt Park is a big city park built on the former estate of legendary Hartford industrialist and gun douche Samuel Colt. The city scheduled a summer concert series in 1976. Frampton, Fleetwood Mac, yes, Tull, wow. Even Jefferson Starship. I'm not just sucking up to Kathy. I did the research. Starship played at Colt Park earlier in the summer. So we got that going for us. Oh, but my headlight was the Dead Show, the last concert of the year. The music grounds were fenced in, I was envisioning it the other day, and it was kind of like the stage. They put the stage here. They had these wire fences on both sides, and in the back, in the way back, there was the highway. But before that, there were these two sets of wooden, like snow fences, those wooden slats. And that'll become relevant to the story, but I had to envision. I actually called one of my high school buddies and said, what happened that day? Because it was crazy. And he filled me in on some of these details. So, but now you have the layout of this part of Colt Park. So yeah, the music grounds were fenced in. At the back was this wooden fence, and then the highway. After navigating security, we threw down some blankets. 'Twas hella hot. And we knew nothing about, nobody talked about hydrating back in the day. You didn't hydrate. You know, it just wasn't a thing. So before long, we were baked. And frankly, a bit of a mess. We smoked weed in volume. And our intake was indiscriminate. Mexican, Jamaican, Colombian, what do you got? Ragweed, ditchweed, skunkweed, dirtgrass, probably weed laced with paraquat. Whatever was there. My boy Butch, one of my best friends Butch, had just bought this beautiful meerschaum pipe, which I don't know if you know about meerschaum, but it's this mineral. It's like a clay pipe, and these artists carve intricate designs in it, and this one had this beautiful picture of like a piratey dude with a beard and a turban, and you put the weed in the bowl and smoked it, and if you touched it with your fingers, it would discolor so Butch was like, don't touch it with your fingers, and so that was the thing, and and it cost like $40, which is a lot of money. And Butch it was a ton of money. It was like I haven't did the math. It's like $250 today. That's kind of what it was. I looked up to buy one today. $250 and $40. It's a lot. So Butch was rightfully proud of his new pipe. I finished the bowl, tapped out the ash, and mindlessly placed the pipe in my back pocket. That's called foreshadowing. Soon, the feathery fingers of euphoria were caressing me, soft like harp strings. The little eel wiggles began to canvas my spine, and involuntary smiles sliced across my face. I was beckoned to meander. Apparently, when I entered those gates an hour earlier, I penetrated a magic portal, a door of perception leading from the mundane to the sacred. I felt that I joined a secret society, and my thoughts, my feelings, my way of looking at things, which I always believed were mine alone, I felt they were actually transcribed by unknown others. It was as if an omniscient hand reached out and took mine. I floated through the crowd with a pleasing calm, like a kite in midair, like Alice on the precipice of the rabbit hole. The music started at 6:30 and ended 5 hours later. Allowing for a 45-minute break, the Dead actually played for 4 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah, I'd like to see the Jonas Brothers do that. So I'm rambling around, and the Dead open with Chuck Berry's Promised Land, Mississippi Half Step, Merle Haggard's Mama Tried, Jerry's solo stuff, mystery stuff that hadn't been released yet. These are the Keith and Donna years, so he's banging on the keys and Donna's doing Donna things. Phil is thumping like Thelonious Monk, Jerry exquisitely noodling, and drums, 2 sets of drums and all kinds of Afro-Cuban, whatever, Mickey Hart bells and whistles, and yes, I'm kite high and feeling rubbery and woozy, feeling that I may be consumed by this glorious sunshine daydream, the heat and drugs and vastness of it all, and though I never felt prey to full-blown paranoia, it occurred to me repeatedly that my mind was but loosely tethered to reality. So I see this group of girls sitting on a blanket in the middle of the muddle, like an oasis, and I think, girls are nice. And they look angelic in their long flowing skirts with Indian designs and their colorful shirts and their beautiful breasts unencumbered by bras. And a few of them are like sailing in dance like beatific dervishes. And I know we're of the same tribe, and their space looks like a safe haven for a wayward soul, a stranger in a strange land. So I approach the blanket in safety. But first I see two dudes in clown suits, puffy ones and pink tutus, blue pantaloons and red hair and big shoes and ridiculous noses, and it's very unsettling. I don't like clowns. Even when I'm not traversing the astral plane. And I try and lose the clowns, but they follow me like my personal Secret Service clowns. And then I see this guy, 100% naked, except the US flag is wrapped around his head because bicentennial, and his sneakers are tied together and hanging from his neck, and his junk is flopping around like a flaccid dish rag, happy as you please, like a miniature elephant trunk 10 feet away from my melting face, and he's sashaying through the crowd, so I got clowns and naked dudes, and I'm zooming, frantically looking for a place to chill. I make it to the edge of the girl's blanket, and I'm playing it cool. They're my age, and they look cool, and then it hits me. The weed, the heat, the acid, the clowns and naked guy, and I crumple, descending like a jellyfish, right on my ass, and I hear, crack! Gadzooks. I know I did a bad thing to Bush's precious pipe. And later, like a coward, I denied having knowledge of the pipe's whereabouts. And Butch remains a dear friend of mine, but that episode will go to the grave with me. So mum's the word. So I fall on my ass, which is simple to do, but impossible to do in a cool way. So I sheepishly say to the girls, sorry, I'm pretty high. And they all giggle, and one of them says, yeah, we're tripping on Red Pyramid. And I fall in love with these girls who dance and trip and see the dead and don't make fun of me for acting the fool. And we all laugh and play together like nut jobs on the Group W bench, like psychedelic Frankie and Annette's on their beach blanket bingo. And I give them Butch's pipe and ask them to throw it away for me. And then I move on. Feeling better? I roam from side to side, from front to back. I'm absorbing it all, the circus, the zoo, the mosaic, the whole cosmology of it all. And the dead are playing songs I know and songs I don't. I hear Cassidy, and they love each other for the first time, which Butch said was awesome, and I pretended to know it but didn't. And Tennessee Jed into Wharf Rat, into playing in the band, and Brown Eyed Woman, and we're all going down the road feeling bad. And hours evaporate and good times roll, and I may have seen God. She'll have to confirm it if I meet her. And although I will eventually see 20 or so more Dead shows, nothing will ever match this first one in the Hartford heat, with 22,000 of my closest friends in those halcyon days when I was 16 years old with my life ahead of me and feeling like I was starting to figure some things out. But first I stopped by the merch area to check out some Dead gear. I'm not really fit to be transactional. I'm not really fit for anything. And in the middle of this Persian bazaar with strange and fleshy people too close together and talking too loudly and hawking t-shirts and frisbees and lighters, and it's all very complicated, especially as I am having an LSD-induced existential crisis, until I see this cool t-shirt and the crisis abates. It's pale yellow and has this picture of a skeleton driving a car. He's like a skeleton taxi cab driver, and he has a joint in his bony finger, and his bony finger is up to his bony face. And I loved that shirt, and I bought it, and I wore it. It actually became the coolest piece of apparel I have ever owned. I wore it until it finally became just a hint of fabric, frayed and tattered, and loved like humans really should not love clothing. But it was more than mere clothing. It was a time and a place and a feeling. It was everything I ever wanted wrapped up into one $6 piece of cloth. And finally, when it was just the thinnest thread, I cut the picture out and used it as a doily or something in one apartment after another for like 6 years until one day it disintegrated. So I got a yellow t-shirt. Eventually, we all meet at the blanket and tell our tales, and it's about 11 o'clock, and the Dead play the last song of the second set, and we know there's an encore, but we head for the gate, and after a long break, during which somebody threw the lights, the house lights on, making everybody think the show was over, then the Dead return and start playing U.S. blues. Cool, bicentennial vibe, cool, cool. And I thought of Naked Man with the flag wrapped around his shoulders and appreciated his inspired political statement and his sheer audacity. And we wait till they finish, and then they leave the stage before we exit and head for the car. We figured that's it. But no, the good times rolled, and the Dead came back for another encore. But we're already by the van when we hear them tear into Sugar Magnolia, and then we hear some noise way in the back, near the fence, near the highway, and we see flames, and we're like, what the fuck? So the rest of this story I've cobbled together. So we drove home. We saw some stuff going on, but we really didn't know. The rest of the story I've cobbled together over the years from people and articles and chatter on Dead websites, and there's even a Reddit page devoted to this show because it was big and weird. It was big and weird. The bottom line, cops and bikers and self-medicated hippies all came together under the summer heat and concocted a toxic brew. From what I hear, someone threw the house lights on, everybody headed for the exits. Suddenly the lights went down and the band started playing another song. When the people that were outside the gates tried to re-enter, all hell broke loose, mostly in the back where there was this wooden fence and the snow fencing. So the Angels reportedly beat up anyone trying to re-enter. The disgruntled fans threw rocks and bottles and lit the fence on fire. It devolved into a riot. At least one cop was thrown into a porta potty and turned upside down. Cops and Angels were dragging kids all around and wailing on them with clubs. Then the Hartford Fire Department appears and did the same. In the morning, the radios announced that 15 cops were taken to the hospital. Wow. No mention, honestly, no mention of how many kids, but 15 cops went to the hospital. It was the last ever outside rock concert at Colt Park. It saddens me to hear people diss this event, this show. Come on, what's a little riot among friends? I treasure this memory. The band was hot, returning after their 1975 hiatus, and I was a wide-eyed kid transported to another world and indoctrinated into a tribal society whose iconography included skulls and roses and dancing bears, scarlet begonias and skeletons. My first exposure to live Dead was a surreal mix of Monet pastels and Hieronymus Bosch phantasmagoria. As usual, I enjoyed all the wonder and beauty while skating around the trauma. Bird's Song is a Grateful Dead song penned by Robert Hunter and Jerry Garcia. It contains a precious lyric that reminds me of that fantastic day. If you ever hear the same sweet song again, will you wonder why? Anyone who sings a tune so sweet is passing by. Laugh in the sunshine, sing, cry in the dark, fly through the night. Deadheads often comment, what a long, strange trip it's been. I say, yeah, no shit.